Hello everyone. Today we are going to review the subject, verb, and object of a sentence. Every single sentence in the English language has a subject and a verb. It has to have those things. Objects are optional though, so we're going to talk about what a subject is, what a verb is, and what an object is. Let's get into it. So first off, the subject of a sentence is the person or thing that does the verb. The subject is who or whatever the sentence happens to be about in that situation. The verb is the action that happens in the sentence. It's whatever's going on. It's the thing that is taking place. And then the object is the person or thing that is being acted upon by the subject. So it's the thing that's receiving the verb. Now, as we know, verbs in English are actions. So we always want to start there. That's usually the simplest place to start when looking for the subject, verb, and object of a sentence. We are going to look for the action. After we have identified the action, our next step is to figure out who or what is doing the action. And who or what is doing the action is going to be our subject of that sentence. And then finally, we'll look to see if there's anything else in the sentence, and that's most likely our object. So let's look at an example together. Our example says the boy chased the dog. Now, you'll remember, like I told you before, we're always going to start with the verb. The verb is the action. In this situation, our action or our verb is the word chased. Chased is our verb. Now, the next step is we are going to look for the subject, and the subject is always the thing that does the verb. In this situation, the thing doing the verb is the person, the boy. The boy is the one doing the chasing. Therefore, the boy is the subject because they are chasing. Finally, our object is the thing that is being acted upon. It's the thing that's maybe receiving the verb. And in this case, it's the dog. The dog isn't doing the chasing. The dog is the one being chased. Therefore, the dog is the object. So again, the verb is the action. The subject is the person or thing that is doing the action. And the object is the person or thing that is being acted upon, that's receiving the action. Let's look at another example. And in this example, I'm going to change things up a little bit. And the reason why is very important. And we'll talk about it in just a moment here. Our next example. The ball was kicked by the boy. So you'll remember we always start with the verb. It's always easiest to start with the verb. Our verb is was kicked. Now, our next step is to identify the subject, and you'll remember that the subject is the thing or the person who does the verb. And in this situation, the thing or the person that does the verb is the boy. The boy is the subject of this sentence. That means that the ball is the object because the ball is the thing being acted upon. Now, the difference that matters a lot that I mentioned just a second ago is that the subject in this sentence comes at the end of the sentence. In our last example, it came at the beginning of the sentence, and I don't want this to trip you up. The subject can come anywhere in the sentence. Anywhere in the sentence. The subject is simply the thing that does the verb. Sometimes the subject is at the beginning of the sentence like this. Sometimes the subject is at the end of the sentence like this. The subject is simply the thing that does the verb. That's why it's so important to look for the verb first. Identify the verb, figure out who or what is doing the verb. That is the subject. Now, the difference between these two sentences is this sentence here with the subject at the beginning is called active voice. Active voice is when we put the subject before our verb. This sentence right here is called passive voice. Passive voice is when we put the subject after the verb. Now, in most cases, it's best to write an active voice like this. It's simplest, it's clearest, it's strongest. However, there are some situations where we're going to need to put the subject after the verb, and that's called passive voice. Now, one of the situations I want you to be aware of is when you take the ACT test, the test is going to put the subject at the end of the sentence to try to trip you up, and I don't want you to fall for that trick. Remember that the verb is always what we start with, and then the subject is always the thing that does the verb no matter where it is in the sentence. Now, what we talked about today is identifying the subject, verb, and object in a sentence. The subject is the thing that does the verb is the action, the object is the thing that receives the verb or is acted upon. Remember that when we're identifying those, we always start with the verb, then we figure out who or what did that verb, that's the subject, and then we figure out what is being acted upon, that's the object. Thank you so much for watching today.